Aizen Solskjaer versus Daemon and Eida. So this is an interesting matchup because not only does Eida have clairvoyance, and she also has the ability to make anybody that even looks at her or is within her presence basically fall in love with her. She also has omnipotence or shinjutsu, which is the ability to make anything reality. Daemon has reflection abilities, and it's instantaneous, and any intent to harm will be reflected. Now, most people just argue from Daihatsu alone that the mere spiritual pressure of Aizen will just destroy these two. Because there wouldn't be any intent to harm. He's just existing, and that would be enough to kill him. But let's say Aizen uses Kyoka Suigetsu, or in other words, Kanzen Saimin, which is an illusion ability which controls all the five senses. Would Daemon be able to reflect such attacks? So it says he reflects all attacks, any action that would inflict harm on him. And though it's necessary for his hands to be touching another person, his ability will also transfer to the person currently touching him. So in other words, he can transfer this, basically this reflection ability to others. Because people misinterpreted this panel to mean that only people that he is touching will have their intent or their harmful intent reflected. Because when we break down this example, this guy merely thought to pull out his sword to go attack Daemon, and it got his head cut off. Because the stronger the intent to kill, the more powerful the reaction. A foe simply picturing the killing scene will cause the end result to be instantly reflected upon him or her. Now here's the thing, is that it's only ever been proven to work on energy-based attacks and physical attacks. So if you took Aizen in a debate, you could actually argue, we've never seen the infinite Tsukuyomi be reflected, or any Genjutsu for that matter. Because part of the issue with Daemon is that he doesn't have the Rinnegan, and neither does Eida. Eida's Dojutsu, which allows her to use clairvoyance, it's basically assumed that she has similar abilities to other Usutsuki that have the Rinnegan, because we know, for example, Sasuke was able to defend against the infinite Tsukuyomi and protect Team 7 within his Susanoo because of his Rin Sharingan, or his Rinnegan. So the question becomes, do they have a dojutsu that's capable of actually resisting high-level genjutsu? And this is heavily implied basically because these characters were stated to be at the top of the entire verse in Boruto. Now, if that's the case, that means that they would be resistant to illusions. But would they be resistant to an illusion of the level of Sosuke Aizen? Now, the crazy thing about Kyoka Suigetsu is that if you've seen this Shikai, merely looking at Aizen when he's fused with the sword is enough for you to get trapped in complete hypnosis, in other words, Kanzen Saimin. However, if you don't see it, then you basically, like in this case, Ichigo was the only one that had never seen its Shikai. And when he activates it, it does have an area of effect. So yes, it can affect multiple people, not just a singular person, because it has an area effect. But his illusions are so good that he's actually able to take control of people. Now, there were people that were kind of suspicious of the fact that there were illusions because of the change in Daihatsu, which would be the equivalent of seeing chakra flow, right? And Osutsuki are really good at seeing chakra flow. So if basically Eida or Daemon were able to recognize that change in chakra, or should I say energy in this matter, you could argue that they would be resistant to it. On Aizen's side, though, you could definitely argue that if Eida was to use her clairvoyance, that she would be caught in Kanzen Saimin the moment that she looks upon Aizen. And then he could basically put her against Daemon. Now this is where Shinjutsu comes into the equation. Eida has the ability to use Shinjutsu known as Omnipotence. And it's basically the power to perform godlike abilities or divine miracles. But the catch is that she can't even control this power. And she accidentally erased the entire planet's memories. And she brought Kawaki's desires to reality. So yes, it's reality warping, but without much control, it's not really a guaranteed ability that would, for example, be able to delete Aizen's abilities. It's not really practical in combat, nor has she been proven to use it in a way that she can control it. So we're just going to rule out omnipotence here. Now, if Daemon could reflect illusions, because let's say that Aizen has harmful intent while making these illusions towards Daemon, there's a good chance that it's instantaneously reflected back at Aizen. But then the next question is, would it actually harm Aizen? And then the other issue is that let's say that his ability cannot reflect illusions because it's never been proven to defend against illusions, the reflect thing. Both of them don't have a defense against high-level illusions. And by high level, I mean Aizen was able to use this Kyoka Suigetsu, or in other words, Kanzen Saimin, on Yuhabaha, who was stated to have transcended everything in the novels. And this is because he absorbed the power of the Soul King. So Aizen being able to use this ability on somebody who's basically transcended everything, who's also able to alter the future and all this other stuff, and was also going to destroy the entire universe, or at least cause the collapse of the entire universe, by removing the linchpin, or in other words, the Soul King. It would basically boil down to, would they be able to harm Aizen? Let alone, would they be able to defend against these high-level illusion techniques that worked on people that transcended even everything, and beings that were powerful enough to destroy entire universes? Because Aizen has enough Reiatsu control to amp his illusions with. And because Aizen had so much Reiatsu, he basically had a flawless, perfect illusion. So if you're arguing for Daemon and Eida, you could definitely make the argument that because they have high-level dojutsu, that they would be resistant to most illusions. Whereas characters in Bleach don't have that many defenses against illusions. But then the obvious rebuttal is that Aizen was using his illusions on much higher level scaling characters. And you'd have to prove that these guys would be able to resist Kanzen Simon, which worked on like a universal being. And with that universal Naruto meta, you could probably argue something like that. Furthermore, there's a lot more like basically feats of Naruto characters being resistant to Genjutsu. And you can say by Boruto, these guys are just like far more superior and evolved from that, because the Asutsuki were stated to be more evolved than the previous. So you could argue Daemon could potentially reflect illusions, but then you could counter-argue that he's never been proven so. But you can also just keep arguing along the lines that it basically reflects all harmful intent. So if Aizen plans on using an illusion to harm, then technically it's going to reflect all attacks with harmful intent, right? But then you can also argue that basically Aizen could use like Kanzen Simon on Eida, turn her against him. And remember, Daemon can hold on to Eida, giving her the reflectability too. So basically he could protect like both of them against Aizen if he's touching her. So this is a really weird argument triangle, but that's pretty much how the debate would go down.